Also breaking, Congressman Eric Swalwell today presented impeachment evidence against former President Trump before the Senate. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made Swalwell an impeachment manager despite his failure to go public with a full description of his relationship with an alleged Chinese spy. Joining us now with more is Congressman Ralph Norman. He is a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, one thing I find it very hard to get past is the fact that the judge in this trial is a partisan. He is a partisan senator who's actually going to vote at the end of the trial. To have a judge who is so far in the bag for one side, it means that either you don't have a judge or you have a show trial. Which is this?
Well, it's a show trial, David, a hypocritical show trial. You know, when Judge Roberts wouldn't take it because constitutionally you have to have a sitting president. President Trump is an ex-president. He's at home in Florida. He's not a sitting president. And to go forward with this, and for the Senator Leahy to say he's going to be fair and impartial, really? Does he expect the American people to believe that?
Well, more than that,
so.
Excuse me, Congressman, but more than that, I mean, this is really bad news for American justice, because every totalitarian country in the world since at least the beginning of the 20th century, whenever they've had a show trial, they focused on getting a judge who's a total partisan for a one-party state. I mean, we now have one party controlling both chambers of Congress and the executive power, and now in a trial of a former president, you have a member of that same party who, of course, makes the absurd claim that he can afford to be impartial.
It's absurd, and to have Eric Swalwell on there along with the senator, I mean, two things. Swalwell ought to be off the Intel committee. They get information that we as regular congressmen don't get. And then to have him on this with cavorting with a Chinese spy, Ms. Fang Fang, is ridiculous. And that's how hypocritical they are. And I think they don't think there's going to be repercussions from the American people. And I think it will be, and it should be.
Now, do you think enough Americans know about Eric Swalwell's relationship with the Chinese spy? I mean, the social media did everything they could to prevent it from getting on their sites. A lot of mainstream media outlets refused to cover the story at all, even though it clearly compromised a man who was on the Intel committee in the House. And of course, he remains in that House committee that depends on people who are not compromised.
Yeah, it's not safe for the country. When you talk about the national security and having a person like this who's compromised, he won't answer any questions. The press does not ask him anything. I mean, the last time I saw Swalwell, he was going into his apartment smiling. Joe Biden in his press conference will not take any questions. You know, if the same had been the case for Donald Trump, the press would be howling. He took on all comers with questions. And this president, along with Swalwell, won't answer anything. And I think they can ride this out. And people, the American public, will just forget it. But you're right, yeah. It's been a struggle because nobody reports it. And you know, look at Biden's son, Hunter, and the dealings he had with China. You just don't make those claims.
Yeah.
You know, you can back those up, and they never had any curiosity at all, which is sad.
Let me bring it back to the economy, the domestic economy, because keeping in line with this theme of one party doing one thing without any input at all from the other side, from Republicans, these executive edicts that are coming out by Biden, specifically on the economy, some of them are getting him in trouble, not just with Republicans, but also with some moderate Democrats, namely Senator Joe Manchin on the Keystone Pipeline. Do you think the president might have to rescind all or part of his pulling back or pulling out of the Keystone Pipeline project?
David, if you follow Biden's history, no. He'll give flowered restatements like he did with he wants to, be a uniter and bring peace to the country. That's not happening. And, you've got a president who has never created the first job. He doesn't know what it's like to be laid off. He's been in government. And, who would hire a pilot who has never actually flown a plane to fly you? Who would hire a physician? And you can go down the list, and I don't think he cares. I don't think he understands. I think he's willing to try to say the things, but it's a hollow words. And I feel for the people who've who've lost their jobs.
Well, and particularly who they are. I mean, the class of people, these are middle-class Americans. These are, he can't say that he's just going after corporations. He's going after for the small businesses who are hurt by the $15 minimum wage, which might be appropriate in some places like New York City, but certainly not in other places in the hinterlands where the average cost of living is a lot lower. So that's hurting small. The people who are losing their jobs because of Keystone are middle-class workers who are paid very well. They're union workers, and yet not even their union chiefs are fully standing behind them on this.
You know, that's where we, the people, ought to get involved. The labor union chiefs are still getting their paychecks.
Yeah.
They're still getting their dollars, as we are in Congress, which we shouldn't be. But no, it's a callousness that I haven't seen in a long time from these people, and yet they act like nothing's wrong. Let them go without a paycheck. Let them lose their job. Let them see how it is to not be able to put food on the table. It's unfortunate, and unfortunately, I think it's a preview of coming attractions.
Well, I hope not, but we'll see. Congressman Ralph Norman, good to see you, sir. Thank you very much for coming.